Here, specifically in your district, what do you think are the top issues for voters, for constituents here? What do you think are the main things moving forward now into the future? 2020 has been a crazy year, but what do you think are the main issues for the people here?
Well, it's what's right in front of us. It is opening schools up and opening businesses up. What's the pace of that? What are the rules going to be? What's the information going to be? I think that is critical, and here we are in August. It won't be very long, and the schools need to be opening, so under what standards? And something that I have pushed for that I don't have accomplished, that I'm going to keep pushing for, is this, that we've got all this data now on all the testing for COVID. And so everybody that's been tested, they have also have within them their age, they should have their height, their weight, any pre-existing conditions they have, their sex, and with that data itself, then we should be able to have a broad database where anybody could go into that database, type in their own particular characteristics that I've just described, and have it go out and find the universe of people who tested positive that fit your characteristics. And then, let's just say you're 60 years old and you've got 2 pre-existing conditions, name them because we need to know what they are, and say female. You type that in, it'll go out in the database and say we found 6,000 people who fit your profile, and here are the results of those who were positive. So many were asymptomatic, so many recovered at home, a certain percentage went to the hospital, ICU, intubated, and some of them went either home or to the cemetery, sadly. But that way, everybody could measure the risks on what they'd be facing if they contract COVID-19. And that we have to get to personal responsibility on this, and if we don't do that, we're going to be living by a federal rule, a state rule, a county rule, a city rule, a school rule, a job rule, and that's too complex, and it doesn't let us draw our own best judgment. So that's number one. Getting the economy rolling is right along with that, and we need to provide employer liability protection. The trial lawyers are out there just salivating at the thought of being able to sue employers if they bring people back to work and people contract COVID in the workplace. They've got to have that kind of protection. It's impossible to prove where people pick it up, and so the businesses just can't take that kind of risk. I want that protection in this next stimulus package, and it is part of something that the Senate is bringing forward. So that's the 2 important things that we have. And then all the businesses that have taken a hard hit, and including agriculture, our pork producers that had to euthanize hogs because the packing plants couldn't process them fast enough. The beef market's been upside down for way too long, and our commodities prices are way too low. So all of those things are something that we need to address. And at the national level, just to get this economy going and sending the right message out of the White House and the right message out of Congress. And I'm concerned that Democrats don't seem to want to get this economy going. And I was standing in a line to board a plane here a week or so ago. There were 2 other members of Congress there. We were talking, and then there was another fellow who happened to be a construction fellow standing in the middle, whom I recognized him from other flights. And I said to the other 2 members of Congress, I don't know when or how this ends. And the gentleman standing in the middle was smarter than the rest of us. He said, November 5th. Anyway, after the election.
That sometimes happens. These things are cyclical. Speaking of coronavirus, in the region here again, or you can speak to Iowa as a whole, do you think it's been managed properly? A recent poll just came out that said less than 30% of Iowans approve of our governor here's handling of the situation. Your thoughts on that? What do you think? If so, what should have been done that you didn't see done?
Well, I think that Christy Noem got good marks in South Dakota because she called for personal responsibility, and their numbers are down. But South Dakota's a different state, too. They have a population density lower than Iowa does. That's a tough spot to be in, be the chief executive officer of a state in a crisis like this, when you're making calls like she has to make in an unknown, and facts that are unknown. But I would like to have seen the governor be far more forthcoming on the data that was out there, and it's gotten better. But I know when I was pressing for data, they didn't seem to be very eager to give it to me, and I thought it might be something, some other reason, but I wasn't the only one. There were state legislators that couldn't get information either. And we don't have that spreadsheet put together. That's another one. But, and we looked at also these numbers. I don't know if they've come out anywhere in the news, but when I go through the Iowa COVID website, you've got to go to different screens and add the math up. I came with this number. There is a number of COVID deaths, from the assisted living side category, and then in a different chart there's a number of COVID positives from the assisted living. They're not fitting together, but it turned out that 40%, if you can, by those numbers that I calculated, if you were contracted COVID in an assisted living situation, about 40% of those that were positive were fatal, and that's a stunning number. And so I look at what Governor Cuomo's situation was in the state of New York, and he sent people back to the nursing home, and they just had a devastating result. Maybe we could have seen that happen sooner here in Iowa and prevented some of those deaths that we had in the assisted living.
And speaking of schools, another place that's at the heart of the COVID debate right now, nursing homes obviously took some of the larger fatalities, but schools, like you mentioned, we're about to go back. Do you think that some of the governors are saying we absolutely need in-person learning? Some are saying a hybrid situation is better. Others are saying we should not be sending our children back at all right now, whether it's at the university or the elementary school level. If you wanted to join that debate, thoughts on how you think this school year amid COVID-19 should begin?
Well, I think especially in the younger years, kindergarten and on up the line of ways, but the youngest children are the ones that contracted the least and have the least kind of symptoms, and they seem to also be the ones that transfer it to others the least. And so I'd like to see them go back to school, be in the social setting, and the teachers can make up their own decisions on this according to the risks that they are. And there may be some teachers that are in health conditions that it's too big a risk for them. Okay, make up your mind on that. But in most cases, I think it would be safe to put the children in school. And if you look at what's happened in Sweden, they've done that from the beginning. They had a high spike and a death loss early, but now that's leveled off. And so I'm for opening up the schools. Let's get on with life. We have to take some risk. And I know that we lost a lot of people when it came to the Spanish flu in 2000 or 1918. And they had masks on kids then when they went to school. And the masks in school, I would leave that up to the local school districts to make that decision. But for me, if I had grade school children, I wouldn't be worried about it. And if I had a 64-year-old teacher with a couple of pre-existing conditions, that's a little different story.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to touch on that has been on your mind?
You know, I think we've covered a lot of material here, and so I would say to the people that this is an extraordinary privilege to represent people of the high quality here in the 4th Congressional District of Iowa. And however this thing wraps around to the end, it's still happy memories through and through, working with the best people in the world. And as I said when we first met, the best place in the world to live and raise a family. And we've made a lot of progress over the 18 years that I've served here in Congress. And I would remind people that I had 2 infrastructure priorities from the first day. One of them was to dredge Storm Lake, 1,600 of 3,200 acres, down at 3 meters and deeper. We did that, and that's done. And the other one was a 4-lane Highway 20 from Sioux City to Dubuque. And I want to be able to pull out of Sioux City, set my cruise on 65, and end up in Dubuque. That highway is done, and I had the great privilege of cutting the ribbon on that highway October 19th, 2018. I remember the day, and I was so enthusiastic that I broke the ceremonial scissors when I did that. And so those promises made, promises kept. And I also said that I'm going to oppose amnesty, and that because it does such damage to the rule of law and it alters so many things in this country, we need to be in control of that. And of all of the efforts to bring amnesty through Congress, from President George W. Bush, for example, is one of them, Barack Obama is another one, and it came out of the Gang of Eights bill out of the Senate and other pushes along the way. I have taken it on directly every time and defeated it every time. And so 18 years without passing amnesty in any effective way, that's a pretty good accomplishment if you love the rule of law, which I do. And I've been involved in several farm bills along the way and laid the foundation for agriculture to be successful here. And I saw $8 corn in that period of time. And so there's a lot of happy memories and a tremendous amount of personal relationships. I want people to know that I'm not backing away from this public life. I want to be involved, and we each of us have a responsibility. God gives us a certain set of core gifts, and it's our job to develop those gifts and then use them to glorify Him. And I told people that, if you elect me to this job, I will burn the candle at both ends, and when I run out of wax, I'll come home.